Very good. Good morning, everybody. We are running very quickly to try and catch up with ourselves. I have to say that what happened on May the 1st far exceeded all of our expectations. We did not expect to be in control of quite as many county councils or mayoralties. And to be frank, we've been running this party over the course of the last 11 months with a very, very minimal number of staff. The one that has perhaps borne the greatest burden is Zia, who was doing pretty much everything behind the scenes and sometimes in front as well. All of which explains his bid for freedom last week. He crawled out under the wire and was running away in the woods as fast as he possibly could, leaving a trail of not so brilliant tweets behind. But after 48 hours we got him and he's back inside, and he will be taking over a job that will still consume him for a good 12 hours a day, maybe not the 18 hours a day he's been doing for me over the course of the last 11 months. I'm a good, kind boss, he'll tell you. I thanked him once over the course of the last year. But he's back, and he's head of UK Doge, among other things. And I want to introduce him onto the stage right now. Zia.
Good morning, everybody. So sorry to put you all through that. I did realise the only way I was going to get a couple of days off was to resign and then come back. Look, I came into politics out of a sense of duty. I was over the moon and ecstatic when Nigel said he was returning to frontline politics to take over as leader of Reform UK. I said I wanted to do everything in my power to make him Prime Minister and to get a reform government in. My commitment to that is redoubled. One of the things that happened actually as after I'd sent those ill-advised tweets, which I regret, was I was inundated with many messages, heartfelt messages, from people, frankly, in my day-to-day job I just didn't hear from that often because my information diet was just far too focused. And what I realised was just how important the reform movement was to people. It is not just a political party. The words like heartfelt, people. There was a gentleman who was in palliative care who said that this movement represented what he viewed as really the last chance for this great country to turn itself around. So I realised how critical Reform UK was to so many millions of people, how critical Nigel is, his leadership, our amazing MPs, our volunteers, everybody around the country who has contributed to this. I could not leave that behind. And sometimes in life, and I hope all of you might agree with this, that sometimes when it takes having a little bit of distance from something to realise how important it is to you. I can't thank Nigel enough for having me back. I regret those tweets. I'm just to perhaps jump ahead of some questions, just to be really clear. I was exhausted, 11 months, and we're really proud of what we've achieved. We've gone from 14% support in the country to 30%. We've got 400 branches full of amazing volunteers across the country. The membership has quadrupled in size to 230,000, and we're very proud of what I think will be the most historically important set of local election results in this country's history. So I'm hugely fortunate, and I feel very blessed to be back amongst this amazing team. And look, I'm going to be serving as Nigel said, to lead the Doge UK efforts. The national budget is £1.2 trillion a year. The amount of waste and in some cases corruption is off the charts, and a reckoning is coming. I want to give you an example. Let's take Kent County Council, where we visited. It feels like a lifetime ago now, but I think it was 2 weeks. Confirmed, I mean, by their own admission, £2.8 million of fraud last year, the vast majority of which is actually inside the so-called mandatory statutory budgets in which there are apparently no savings to be found. They've been paying taxpayer money for taxi companies submitting invoices for journeys that never happened, adult social care companies submitting invoices for care of people who had long since deceased, paying employees who had long since left. As Lee said, the snouts have been in the trough for far too long. Look, there are a lot of great people who do great work in the public sector, but there is no doubt there's a huge amount of waste. We're assembling an all-star team of brilliant people who are working for free. They're going to use cutting-edge tools and technology to do, frankly, an inhuman amount of work to get to the bottom of where there is waste and potentially corruption. So very excited to do that. And actually, I think, in terms of how important it is, given the enormous growth in public spending and the state of this country's finances, I actually think it's going to be one of the most important missions this country will embark on since World War II. So I'm really excited about that. I'm even more excited that Dr. David Bull is going to be the new chairman of the party. Look, this party is no longer a startup. I think it's gone to scale-up phase, to use perhaps a tech analogy. And look, the reality is what we need now in a chairman is someone who is an incredible communicator, someone who's loved universally across the party, loved by the volunteers, someone who's going to, I think, do a better job than me at energizing volunteers on the front line. He's going to have more time to do it. I think you probably agree he's a more affable and charming man than I am. So look, I am hugely excited that Dr. David Bull is going to be taking up the role of chairman. I wholeheartedly congratulate him, and I know he's going to do an incredible job for us. Thank you very much, everyone.
Zia, thank you very much indeed. Zia's done a phenomenal job, but so much of what he's had to do has been in the office in London. We are dividing responsibilities within the party. We've got a new head of operations. We're going to have a new head of treasury very shortly. And our new chairman, Dr. David Bull, known to me, we served together in the European Parliament for a period of time. To those of you who are longer in the tooth, he was on John Craven's news round years ago, and has done an awful lot of television in the intervening time. And he was hosting a programme on Talk Radio until about 5 minutes ago when he rang the boss. And David is a terrific communicator, and Zia was being very self-deprecatory there. But David's job is not to get involved with the admin, is not to get involved with the tech. It's to give leadership, and above all, to give leadership to that volunteer army out there of people, as Zia mentioned, of 450 branches, and they're going to be seeing an awful lot of Dr. David Bull over the course of the coming years, and he comes into this job with terrific verve, energy, enthusiasm, and it's going to be great fun. Dr. David Bull. We're going to photograph over here. Yes. Well done. If you do the handover, Zia, if you just pose with David for the handover, you don't need to do this one.
Just let everyone else.
Guys down here.
Straight ahead, please. Which one? Well, a very good morning to all the members, first of all, from Reform UK. I want to say a very good morning to all the supporters of Reform UK and, of course, ladies and gentlemen of the press. I am absolutely bowled over. I am thrilled. I am delighted to take up this position of chairman of Reform UK. It is the fastest growing political party this country has ever seen. It is an absolutely massive role, which you've heard from Zia. It's a huge role. I will take it up with vigour, determination, enthusiasm, and a smattering of trepidation. It is an absolutely vast role. I'm also deeply honoured that Nigel has asked me to do this. We go back a very long way, as you heard. I'm absolutely thrilled that he's put his trust into me as we continue with the growth, the development and the professionalisation of the party. Now, I'm really sorry that the story broke last night on Mail Online, and I'm very sorry about that. The thing that I'm most upset about is after 30 years of broadcasting in news and current affairs, from Newsround, Watchdog, Health Check, Tomorrow's World, and also my show on Talk TV, the journalist in question decided to pin my entire career on the world's largest live ghost hunt, which I used to present some 20 years ago. Having said that, I'm going to use my skills in the paranormal to dig around and find skeletons in the closet of the Conservative Party and the Labour Party as well. Now, as Nigel said, my role is very much going to be externally facing. I've spent a lot of time on the ground campaigning with Richard over the years, and the lifeblood of this party is the voluntary party. They are an extraordinary group of people. They go out regardless of the weather, they knock on doors, they put leaflets through the letterboxes, they set up market stalls, and they really are such an important, vital asset to this party. What I want to do is to go around the country to show some love to all of those people who believe that this country deserves better. So that's the externally facing role. But one other thing that's crucial is we are growing and developing the professional party as well. So my role is about bringing those two parts of the party together, the voluntary party, the professional party, and I want to act as a conduit between the two. I do want to pay enormous tribute to Zia. He has done an extraordinary job. If I look back to my involvement in the party, Zia has professionalised the party beyond belief. As he talked about all the branches that he has set up, the governance structures and the candidates that we've put into place, that is no mean feat at all. I'm also, I have to say, on a very selfish note, delighted you are staying and, of course, heading up the Doge unit, which is going to be absolutely vital as we move forward and show what Reform UK can do in local government. I'm also thrilled he's going to help with fundraising as well, because, of course, that's important for any political party. And also, Zia is the most fantastic media performer. He's a great charismatic person in front of camera, and he will also be helping me and the members of Parliament in terms of spreading the message of Reform UK on the national and local media. Now, I've actually been involved with the party, as Nigel said, for a very long time. I was elected in the Brexit Party as an MEP for the North West. I've stayed with the party ever since then. And in fact, I think it's fair to say that Reform UK was founded in my kitchen in Suffolk, I think, with Richard Tyers. Nigel decided to go off on a sabbatical, and Richard gamely stood up and became the leader of the party. I became the deputy leader of the party, and we grew the party from 2 to 3%, then 6, 7, 8%. But when Nigel came back, we have now rocketed off the charts. We're now polling consistently at 31% across the board, pretty much in every single poll you look at. And the results are evident. We are now in overall control of 13 councils. We are the largest party on 2 other councils as well, Doncaster and Cornwall. We have 832 councillors across the country. We're gaining more by the day when people defect, or indeed when there are by-elections as well. When you look at our membership, it has also rocketed to 233,000 members. That is just shy of 250,000 members in this country. And let me tell you, in the last quarter of last year, we gained 70,000 members alone. That is unprecedented in modern political history. What else have we achieved? Well, of course, 5 members of Parliament, of course. We have 2 mayors in Greater Lincolnshire with Dame Andrea Jenkins, and Hull and East Yorkshire with Luke Campbell, MBE. The key for me with this party is we have grown it from the ground up. This is a grassroots party. It is through the strength, determination, hard work of all those people around the country who've been out and about canvassing, delivering, leafleting and setting up those market stalls. So what happens from here? Well, as Nigel said, I've just told my boss at Talk TV that I shall be taking up this role. Good morning, Denny. So I shall be going around the country. I want to really be there to support all of our members, our volunteers, our elected officials, and of course, crucially, our candidates. Being a candidate is really difficult. And of course, you have to work very hard. You often get abuse hurled at you. And I want to be there because I've been there many times before to help and to support them. And given my background, I will also be helping the members of Parliament, Zia, Nigel, being a voice on national and local media as well. I see this as the ultimate push. We are going to fight and we are going to win the next general election. And we are going to put Nigel Farage into number 10, and we will become the governing party of the United Kingdom. Can we do it? Well, to quote Bob the Builder, yes we can. Thank you very much.
David, thank you very much. Could I have my press list back, please? There was a list there with 20 press names on it. What a start. Who knew the chairman was a tea leaf? Right, okay, we have a lot of questions. I will attempt to rattle through them as best I can, but obviously if you need to direct a question at somebody else, we'll get them up on stage. Let's start with Jack Fenwick from the BBC.
Jack Fenwick, BBC News. A week ago, we didn't know that you'd be standing here announcing a new chairman. Now, parties led by yourself have had a number of rows and resignations over the years. Does that all need to end if Reform is going to be a credible party of government?
Rows and resignations? Yes, that's right. 7 chairmen since 2022 and 4 leaders. They're called the Conservative Party, and they're like ferrets in a sack. And, you know, people come and go in politics, but I think you'll find, if you look around, even in this room, there are people that have worked with me for 5 years, people in this room that have worked with me for 10 years, people in this room who worked for me for 20 years. People I employed back in the city, back in the 1990s, are still friends of mine. I am very, very loyal to people, all the while they're loyal to me. But in politics, it doesn't always quite work like that. And, I mean, you know, given the sins that were committed last week, look at my levels of forgiveness. The serious point is, yes, of course, what we have to do is to build a team as we go forward to the next general election. And that's going to have to be a very broadly based team. We're going to have, you know, effectively, as we go into the next election and before, you know, you're going to need to see who our potential Chancellor is. You're going to need to see, and I understand all of that, and that will happen as part of our evolution. Thank you very much. Adam Cherry, GB News.
Thank you. Can I just clarify the remit of the new chairman position? Is it mostly ambassadorial? Is David Bull, is his homework going to be marked by Zia Youssef and yourself? Does he have any sort of executive administrative function?
Oh gosh, that's all a bit too clever for me. It's perfectly clear what Zia's going to do. He's going to head up UK Doge. He's going to continue to help work on policy development, such as the crypto and digital assets bill that I launched at the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago. He'll go on doing media, as David said. You know, he's an excellent media performer, you know, wherever he is, whoever's questioning him. And he will also continue to help, as and where he can, raising money for the party. His roles and responsibilities are clear. I will be leaning on him to help us with some data things, stuff that he's done for us brilliantly in the past. David's job is not ambassadorial. David's job is inspirational. You know, for example, In Greater London alone, we have to find 1,800 candidates to fight those 32 boroughs that are up next year. We have to get them through a vetting process. Getting people to stand for election does take a bit of leadership, a bit of inspiration. It's something I've been doing a lot of over the course of the last year. David will play a very leading role in that. Plus, when you've got a voluntary party, these people are giving of their own time and money, and they need, actually, someone to spend a lot of time going around and seeing them. There's no way that Zia and I could do as much of that as we'd like to have done, and David is going to spend a lot of time out on the road. It is a lot more than ambassadorial. Thank you very much indeed. Jack Elsom from The Sun.
Thank you, Nigel. Jack Elsom from The Sun. It's been clear for the past few days that Reform are not afraid to have some robust conversations about some of the big issues. So can I ask about another one? Because after the sentencing of the Southport killer in January, Lee Anderson and Richard Tice mooted bringing back the death penalty. Sarah Pochin said in the Runcorn by-election she would never support such a thing. So can I ask what your and the party's position is on that? Thank you.
These are issues of conscience, just as the assisted dying debate will be when it comes up on Friday, just as the abortion limit. These are all issues of conscience. Nothing on the death penalty will be part of party policy. I have to say, personally, I think given there have been 500 quite serious miscarriages of justice in this country since the early 1970s, I don't think I could ever support it, but I understand why others take a different point of view. Although I do think it's quite interesting, there's a younger generation coming through who seem to increasingly support the death penalty, and I suspect it will be back within the next decade as an issue of major national debate. Not quite yet, but it's coming. But certainly these things will not be party policy, far, far from it. Sam Coates from Sky News.
Nigel Farage, how important is it, how useful is it to have a new chairman who's got lots of experience on the telly?
Well, actually very good, as you know yourself, having made the transition to being a TV star. And I even think, Sam, you might have bought one or two new suits, although they're still crumpled. And I think message delivery and simplicity of message in politics is very important. I mean, sit and watch Question Time. Hear the first question to the minister or the shadow minister. They'll give a 90-second answer. Nudge the person next to you and say, what did he or she just say? And they'll go, can't quite remember. So clarity of message, message delivery, getting people to understand what you're saying, even if they disagree with it, is vital. And I think David's got more experience than all the rest of us in doing that. And I think that really, really does matter. Carl, ITV.
Thank you very much. Carl Dinn in ITV News. I just wonder where you stand on Sizewell C and whether or not your government, the government that you would head, would put billions of pounds into nuclear power, or would you prefer coal?
We need coal in small quantities for specialist reasons, and we should mine our own and not import it from Japan and Australia. But that is quite different to reopening every coal-fired power station in Britain, although I think it was moronic to close down Ratcliffe, the last one, which is a very useful backup. Absolutely moronic thing to do, but then from Ed Miliband, what would you expect? The arguments being made this morning in favour of Sizewell are remarkable. We're being told that it's carbon zero energy and that it gives us constant energy. Yes. So how can the government on the one hand argue for that and on the other argue for a massive increase in intermittent renewables whose energy doesn't fit our national grid system? And it's very interesting that on May the 29th, we were once again a whisker away from the lights going out in this country. And we've had several days this year when we've had to import over 20% of our electricity. This is the lunacy that we were taken into. Boris Johnson, the Saudi Arabia of wind, that being carried on. We are, as a party, pro-nuclear. We think ultimately, if you do want to reduce carbon emissions, it is the only way, frankly, to do it. I would just make 2 points. One being that both Hinkley and Sizewell are a pretty outdated model of nuclear reactor, first point. And my second point, it's remarkable how much nuclear energy costs in this country compared to other countries in the world who can do it at a half or maybe even a third of the price. I'll talk more about that over the course of the next week. Thank you very much indeed. Caitlin from PA.
Thank you. Yesterday when you were speaking in Port Talbot, you said that Mr Yousaf's resignation plunged your party into a difficult place for a few hours. Do you have confidence that that is not going to happen this time? And if not, have you made any changes to ensure it doesn't?
Yeah, we've locked him in a room. He can't do it again. Look, you know, I mean, have you ever made a mistake in your life? And the more people work under pressure, and, you know, in mistake, one tweet these days, and suddenly the whole world looks different and looks terrible. I think it's very unlikely that Zia, who is a very diligent person, will do that again. Will we never, ever, 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 ever again have someone say or do something stupid? Of course we will. It's life. It's human beings. And, you know, people's faults and people's virtues, I think, are magnified in politics compared to business and many other walks of life. David Wilcox, Daily Mail.
Thank you, Nigel. Just wanted to talk about donations. The new figures for the first quarter out today, showing Reform struggling a little bit to bring money in that isn't donated by Richard Tice and a few other close figures. Are you worried that the money still isn't coming in? Is Nick Candy's job safe as Treasurer, and would you like to see him donate the balance of his £1 million that he promised?
How do you compare the donation figures with the previous quarter?
Not off the top of my
Well,
head.
you're the Daily Mail, not me. I mean, surely you know the facts, not me. I think you'll find it's like a tenfold increase. So are our figures about the same as the Lib Dems for Q1 and behind Labour and Conservatives? Yes. Are they significantly higher than the two previous quarters before? Yes, they are. So the trend is in the right direction. It is taking time. As for the slight at Nick Candy, well, he's only given you £313,000. Can I just put on the record, I'm very grateful, Nick, for the £313,000 that you've given us, and you tell us that actually there's going to be another £250,000 coming over the course of the next few months, and I'm extremely grateful. Is it easy to raise big money in politics? Well, it's not, because I haven't got any peerages to give. Oh, sorry. Because that's the way it's been working for decades. I mean, the honours system is corrupted beyond belief. We don't have any gongs to give out. But am I confident? Am I confident that we're building the kind of relationships that will lead to really serious donations? Yes, but let's just be clear. You know, we have been funded predominantly by men and women in this country paying their 25 quids or 50 quids or whatever it is to be members of this party, and that's where the bulk of our revenue comes from. And of course, when you see the Electoral Commission reporting, as you did this morning, that's only reportable donations over £11,500. So, look, do we need to raise a lot of money? Absolutely. Absolutely. Is it going to be a big task to catch up with the vast amounts of money that Unite and the GMB give the Labour Party? Yeah. Yeah, you know, this is going to be a big, big challenge, but I will immediately after this be off to see Nick Candy for another donor lunch. Tony Diver from The Telegraph.
Thank you. Can I ask a bit more about your staffing plans and the shadow cabinet? When you're looking for people to join your party and be spokesmen for these issues, will you be looking for former Conservative ministers who've got some experience serving in government when you're pitching to the voters? And if I may, Kemi Badenoch has said that she would let bosses ban the burqa, and she's also backed mass deportations of foreign criminals going further.
Oh, wow. I say she is moving, isn't she? Gosh.
She's gone
amazing.
further on both of those issues, arguably, than you have. Is it possible that she is more right-wing than you?
Well, most people are more right-wing than me. I mean, I'm a socialist, after all, given our family policy. Look, it doesn't matter what Kemi Badenoch says, no one's listening. No one's listening. No, I'm not joking. No one's listening. The country is not listening to what she has to say, does not take what they say seriously. I even saw Jenrick the other day say we're going through economic and societal breakdown. I mean, perhaps I'll lend in my clothes next, you know. But no, look, no one takes them seriously at all. As for people who come to join us from the Conservative Party, well, most of them did a pretty rotten job. If there are some that did a good job, then yes. Obviously, the same principle would apply. We're being a bit hypothetical here, but the same principle would apply as applies in the local councils. We have lots and lots of newbies going into these county and unitary authorities, but we also have people that have been there before, without which it would be difficult. So yes, we will need some people who've got real experience of how government works and real experience of how perhaps it might be tricky at times to do battle with the civil service. So yeah, we want people who are experienced, but we want people who join us for the right and not the wrong reasons. James Hill, Spectator.
Thank you, Nigel. At the end of April, you said that there'd be more detail on your deportation policy in 3 to 4 weeks. Can you just give an update of when that is going to be published?
Yeah, we've looked and thought, Zia and I both have looked and talked about this at very great length. We've looked at draft paper after draft paper. Frankly, been completely overtaken by events. Completely overtaken. The first sentence I uttered today was, we are running fast to try and catch up. May the 1st, getting these new councils in place, working out new branch rules, etc. We've been completely overtaken by events. Is that a work in progress that will come sooner rather than later? It is. Is it a bit behind? Yes. Lucy White, Bloomberg.
Hi, thanks, Nigel. Zia was very popular with some of your more business-minded supporters. Do you believe that David's going to have the same appeal, and might he be open to criticism that you're taking a more sort of Trumpian line given his TV experience?
Well, I can't talk about David's appeal, obviously. I mean, that's up to it's all in the eye of the beholder, I suppose. I think the point is we're building a broad team. You know, we're broadening the leadership base and the management base of the organisation. There's no particular reason why business people would take umbrage at Dr. David Bull. Who knows? Having somebody inside that's been a hospital doctor might actually be a very useful thing when it comes to answering questions about the National Health Service and the deficiencies within it, without people screaming that we want to make people pay £150,000 for a hip operation, which appears to be what the Labour line machine is roughly saying at the moment. So, you know, it's going to be a broadly based team. We now have a qualified doctor as a senior member of our management team, and we have Sarah, who's been, as you know, a magistrate for 20 years, 12 years in the chair of that, and we are beginning to build out a much more broadly based party, and that will appeal, you know, individuals will appeal more to some sections than others. I'm not concerned about that. Will Hazel from the Eye.
Thanks, Nigel. Zia Yusuf's departure and return highlighted differences of opinion within Reform on the specific issue of the burqa. On the broader issue of Islam's place in 21st century Britain, do you think Islam presents any sort of threat to British culture, the British way of life?
I think if it highlighted anything, it highlighted what are the priorities. Yeah, what is in the front line? What is in the shop window as opposed to what's there in the rest of the store? And I think Zia, I can't speak for him really, but I think what Zia felt was, you know, we've got a cost of living crisis, a looming energy emergency, more boats coming across the channel than we've ever seen before, lawlessness in London and all of our other major cities, be that knife crime, gang crime, you name it. There are many, many other priorities. Okay, is the issue around the burqa, or more broadly, actually, face coverings? I mean, should that mob that greeted me in Aberdeen last week with their Antifa flags be allowed to wear face masks and say openly insightful things about my future health or immediate future health and security? Should they be allowed to do that with their faces covered? So there is a much bigger, broader debate about this. Do I think, in cultural terms, the burqa fits in with the British way of life? Not really, no. Let's go to Theo Usherwood, Times Radio.
Theo Usherwood, Times Radio. Can I just ask you, Nigel, does this change at the top of Reform's leadership belie the fact that the Reform is at risk of being too broad, that actually you need, with Dr. David Bull, to appeal to the base of the party, and that you can't afford to ignore the base of the party?
Well, I think, you know, we've built the base of the party incredibly rapidly, much more quickly than I ever thought possible. And if I'm being honest about it, I don't think we've been able to service it properly. We just, you know, we've been a classic startup. You know, a start-up company that's got a good idea, the idea starts to take hold, and, you know, you can see the main representatives of the party sitting on the front row, and they all do their best. We just haven't had enough people to get out, and actually what these members, what these branches, what these potential candidates want, they actually want to sit in rooms like this and debate issues and ask questions. And goodness knows, I mean, I spent the whole of January and February travelling around doing county events and regional events, but it just isn't enough. You know, I constantly get asked, well, you know, why haven't you been in Wales for 3 months? Or why haven't you been in Scotland for a year? Or almost like we can't win. Well, luckily now, David Bull is prepared to work 100 hours a week. I didn't tell him that bit yet, but... and you know, he will be going out around the country, and yeah, that engagement, the people that have joined us, Theo, are wildly enthusiastic. And they want to show that, and they want to share that enthusiasm, but we also need to help direct them as to how best they can use it. So I do think there was a bit of a gap. There are many other gaps too. It's a classic startup, as I say. It outgrows its own size very, very quickly. I've got Ava from Joe.
Hi, Nigel. Zia will be heading up the Doge unit with Aaron Banks, who has previously offshored some of his businesses and not paid the corporation tax that other businesses are expected to pay. I was wondering, with your bold spending plans that you've got, if you are to get into government, will you be encouraging your members to onshore their businesses so that there is more corporation tax in the Exchequer?
Sadly, there'll be less corporation tax in the Exchequer as people are offshoring as we speak. There'll be several dozen people today that leave London and probably will never come back. And this catastrophic series of tax policies, of anti-entrepreneurial policies, launched by the great Jeremy Hunt, now being accelerated by Labour, I mean, people are going overseas. As for Aaron, well, Aaron has businesses overseas, has paid vast amounts of tax in the United Kingdom, happens to be employing quite a few people all around the world. It is allowed. But he has paid an awful lot of UK tax. But I wonder how many Aaron Bankses will be here in 5 years' time. I mean, virtually everybody I know that has been successful in business is considering leaving this country. The last official figures were that 10,800 of the wealthy left Britain. The next set of figures, I don't know what they're going to be. 20,000, 25,000. You've only got to look at property prices in Westminster, Chelsea, Kensington to see they've all fallen by over 20%. Now, that doesn't really matter, and nor does it benefit ordinary folk, because these are houses priced in millions. But you don't make those that are not doing so well in society better off by getting rid of your biggest taxpayers. You know, and given that the top 1% of taxpayers now pay 30% of all tax revenues, we've got a very, very, very major problem coming. We really have. Stefan from Politico.
Thank you, Nigel. In the last week, Elon Musk has spectacularly blown himself up in the US. He's very unpopular in the UK, all polling shows. Considering that, is it wise to have Zia Yusuf's new unit still called UK Doge, or is a rebrand required?
Okay, no, good question. I, of course, can proudly boast that I was the first person politically that Elon fell out with in spectacular style. So I set the trend, all of which goes to prove I couldn't be bullied by the world's richest man, and I am my own person, for right or wrong. We thought hard about this. We thought about, well, we did have a name, didn't we? There was a UK name that we thought we'd use, and then what polling showed us is one of the things that's wildly popular in the UK, that's happening in America, is the concept of Doge, and that Doge had seeped into public consciousness, and that to attempt to rebrand that would be a hell of a difficult effort. So that's why we've stuck with it. And yeah, you know, Doge is Doge, and Elon is, well, he's Elon really, isn't he? We've got a couple more to do. Jane from Channel 4.
Thank you. Do you agree with your new chairman's view that the burqa is an anti-British symbol, and will a ban become reform policy?
No, as I've said already, this is about priorities. You know, I don't like to see the burqa. I think he's probably right. It probably is anti-British in the sense that, you know, if these women are being, I mean, maybe they're volunteering to do it. I don't know. But if they're being forced to cover up, that is not a good and positive thing. But is it absolutely front line and centre of what we're going to campaign for, not given the other major crises we face. I've got three more. Peter Walker from The Guardian.
Hi, Nigel. Well, I hear what you say about you're saying your deportation policy won't be ready for a few weeks. On the radio yesterday, Zia was saying that the ultimate aim will be to deport around 1.2 million undocumented people. Obviously people quibble over the figures, and the report that came up with the 1.2 million is, that's the top end of the range. But there'll still be a lot of people. Could you give a sense of how logistically that would take place? Would the police be expected to do it, or would there be a kind of new immigration enforcement unit? And of those people, around a couple of 100,000 people are children, many of whom were born here, lived here their entire lives. Would you be deporting those as well?
As President Trump is discovering in Los Angeles, this is not an easy thing to do, all right? Which is why I've always been, whilst it has to happen, I've always been cautious about delving into specifics on it. I will say this, there'll be no deportations until we leave the ECHR. There'll be no deportations until British judges are freed to make their own decisions, although even when that comes, given our current crop of judges, I think there may still be challenges, given the politicisation that has happened of the judiciary and the civil service and all the things in a post-Blair time. Two more. Archie from The Independent.
Hi, Nigel. One of your MPs, James, who's here as well, tweeted yesterday about small boats, asking if anybody with a camera and a pair of scissors fancies a trip to Calais for some dinghy popping. Do you think that's funny? Do you think it's sort of an acceptable way for an MP to talk about the sort of crisis of people crossing the Channel generally, and would you sort of advise against it, or do you support it?
He's perfectly free to say what he thinks. He's a grown-up, isn't he? Do I take deep offence at James? Will I put him in detention? No. Last question, Aubrey from The Times.
Finally, thank you.
That's all right.
You obviously mentioned in your answers earlier about the burqas that there was a wider issue with face coverings.
Yeah.
I was just curious about whether or not you think they should be banned in protests. That was a specific example you gave.
Yeah.
So I presume it's not just a sort of religious issue for you.
No, it's not. I mean, look, I think that, of course, we have to get this balance of right to protest correct. And everyone recognises that. And there are always arguments about whether we've been too hard on one group or too soft on another, or whether indeed we've had a two-tier approach to this, as seen by the Palestinian marches through London. And I think there is a justification and an argument for saying that. But I think when masked protesters turn up in Cornwall, try to prevent members of the public attending a public political event at which I'm one of the speakers, where violence is used, where someone gets a tooth knocked out, where a lot of people are so intimidated to walk through this throng that they actually turn around and go home, and in that sense have their democratic rights denied, and that happens by masked people and not a single person gets arrested. I think there's something fundamentally wrong in that. If you can go out and protest, but you can't hide behind a mask and commit violent acts. And because if you do that, the police perhaps will never ever catch up with you. So I don't know. Calgie's got his hand up.
Sorry, I don't know how my name fell for this.
Well, I'm sorry, but you were blackballed, obviously.
Clearly. So just quickly, you talk about the role that David's going to have in message delivery, but just to talk about message discipline. Last week, we didn't just have the resignation of Zia. We had a debate about the burqa that I sensed that you were not particularly wanting to have. So isn't it true that you temporarily lost a bit of control last week? And do you need to start ruling reform with more of an iron fist from now on?
No, there won't be an iron fist. They're grown-ups. Look at them. Whoa, they're grown-ups. Let them get on with it. Let them get on with it. If they wildly contradict something that I think, then I might say something. But are people free? And have we all forgotten? The House of Commons is a debating chamber. This was a call for a debate. And how interesting that the Prime Minister literally didn't know how to respond. And you can move the debate on to the number of predominantly Muslim countries that have also banned the burqa, not just 7 or 8 European countries. Is it worthy of debate? Yes. Of course it is, but I believe it's in a broader context of face coverings as a whole. Anybody? Sorry, yes, hello. Microphone.
Patrick Sims, Waltham.
Number 22.
Ah, yes, I know.
Come in, number 22.
This was actually a question for David, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Yep. Normally, it's you asking me the questions on your TV show, isn't it? Now, it's been said in some circles that some of the leadership of the party thus far has been a bit too centric. Under your governance, is this likely to be something that changes? Is this likely to be something that actually is going to... Because I keep hearing from Reform members about the branch stuff and about the board stuff.
Okay, that's not fair to ask David on morning number one.
No.
30 minutes into the job.
It's a question about saying what is the intention?
Okay.
What is the intention?
I promised I would professionalise and democratise the party, right? We have professionalised it to a large degree, although it's now bigger than we are, and we're trying to catch up with the broadening of the management and leadership base. On democratisation, they've got a new constitution, I've given away my shares, and the next stop is to get the board up and running by the end of the summer, and we'll do that. Last one.
Number 105. Nigel, could I ask you, with regards to yesterday, Ed Miliband was on Nick Ferrari's show this morning and said you were telling fairy stories, you don't understand coalfield communities and that you're playing people for fools. I just wondered if you had a response to... I know you've got some of your favourite politicians here. Ed Miliband's, I imagine, one of them as well.
Very funny. I went to a working man's club 300 yards from Ed Miliband's constituency office in the northern bit of Doncaster. And I went into that club a few years ago. It was full of ex-coal miners, and, you know, some were full-on Scargillites, and others wanted to have a debate, and it was very interesting. And I said, oh, how often has Ed Miliband popped in? Never been in. If you think Ed Miliband understands former coal mining constituencies and their people, I'd like to see a head-to-head between Lee Anderson, who's worked down the pit, and Ed Miliband discussing the facts of life. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed.